Good morning. In this flipped classroom activity, we will be working on Springboard page 207 and summarizing the chapters of Things Fall Apart 20 through 25. How do you think we can fight when our own brothers have turned against us? This is an important quote that comes up in chapter 20 from Obierica, who's concerned about the new changes that have come as a result of this new religion and culture. From the beginning of his exile, Akwanko's planned on how to rebuild his compound. He wants it to be larger, he wants to take 2 more wives, and get titles for his sons. He thinks less of Nwoye's disgraceful departure, but still regrets that Nzima is a girl. Akwanko gets his daughters to postpone marrying so that he may attract interest when he returns to Omofia. However, Omofia is very different when they return. The church has come and led many astray. The white men subject the villagers to their judicial system and rules of government. Akwanko can't believe that his clan has not driven out the harsh, arrogant white men and their church. Obierica explains that it's too late. The church has weakened the ties of kinship. Akwanko observes that the white man is very clever. He came quietly and peaceably with his religion. He appeared to have benevolent interests so that the Africans would permit them to stay. In chapter 21, Omofia is divided over the white men's influence in the community. The benefit is the trading posts. Money is flowing into the village. Mr. Brown, the white missionary, restrains Christians from harassing the clan. Akuna, one of the clan's leaders, explains that the clan also has just one god, Chukwu, who created the world and the other gods. So this exchange between Mr. Brown and Akuna is very interesting, and it kind of shows how Mr. Brown is much more reasonable and willing to discuss their differences as opposed to the next missionary who shows up. But they have a really interesting exchange when they're talking about the gods and how Akuna agrees that even though the carving is a piece of wood, but it was created by Chukwu, their god. Neither will convert, but they gain a greater understanding of the other's faith. Mr. Brown builds a hospital, a school, and he tells them that if the children don't go to school, strangers who can read and write will rule over them. So he is trying to think about, at least in his way, of the best interests of the clan. So he builds them hospitals and schools, and he wants to help them be able to advocate for themselves in this new system of government. Mr. Brown tells Akwanko that Nwoye, who is now called Isaac, was sent to the new training college for teachers. But eventually his health declines and he leaves Omofia. In chapter 22, Reverend James Smith replaces Mr. Brown. He is strict, intolerant, demands obedience to the letter of the Bible. He disapproves of Mr. Brown's former policies. He saw things as black and white, and black was evil. Zealous converts are relieved to be free of restraints. They're not being held back anymore by reason. And it's Enoch who touched off the great conflict between the church and the clan. Enoch unmasks an Igwugwu during the annual ceremony to honor the earth deity, which is the equivalent to killing an ancestral spirit. The next day, the Igwugwu burn Enoch's compound to the ground. They gather from the church to confront Reverend Smith. They tell the Christians that they wish to destroy the church to cleanse their village of Enoch's horrible sin. Smith stands his ground, forbidding them to touch the church. His interpreter alters statements for fear they are too harsh and will provoke anger. But he does say that Smith demands that they leave. They ignore Smith's orders and burn down the church. For the first time in many years, Akwanko had a feeling that was akin to happiness, because action was finally being taken, even though the clan did not agree to kill the Christians or drive them away. Villagers are on guard, and they arm themselves for the next 2 days. District Commissioner returns from his tour, and he requests a meeting with the leaders of Omofia. They go, taking only machetes, because guns would be unseemly. The commissioner is condescending and says they should discuss the church's burning as friends. But as soon as their machetes are on the floor, soldiers handcuff them and throw them in jail. While in jail, they suffer insults and physical abuse. Okonkwo was choked with hate. Bail is set at 200 bags of cowries, but the court messengers ask for 250 just to make a profit. An emergency village meeting occurs, and they decide to collect the cowries necessary to pay the fine. And Zinma, who was visiting her future in-laws for 28 days, comes home. In chapter 24, Umofia leaders return to the village upset. Entire village overcome the sense, with tense and unnatural silence. And Zinma takes Okonkwo some food. She and Obiarika notice whip marks on his back. The village crier announces another meeting. The following morning, the clan is filled with a sense of foreboding. Okonkwo has slept very little out of excitement and anticipation. The meeting is packed with people from 9 villages. Okonkwo believes that the nature of man has changed. He has decided on a course of action no matter what the others think, so he takes out his war clothes, a raffia skirt, feather headgear, and shield, and he thinks about all of his former war glories. So the first speaker talks about the damage the white man and his church have done to the clan, the desecration of the gods and ancestral spirits, and that they may have to spill clansmen's blood if they battle the white man, because, as remember before, the clan is divided. But court messengers approach, ordering the meeting to end. Okonkwo kills the leader with his machete, and Okonkwo stands looking at the dead man. He knew that Umofia would not go to war. Now that we've reached the end of chapter 24, you may want to go back to the beginning where we talk about Mr. Brown and Mr. Smith. This will help you complete page 207. First, you want to reread the excerpt from chapter 20 that comes from Obiarika, and you want to choose one of the statements that decide whether or not Obiarika's assessment of the situation is accurate, and find textual evidence from the passage to support your opinion. Part 3 wants you to fill out a chart comparing and contrasting the 2 missionaries, Mr. Brown and Mr. Smith. Again, if you need to, you can rewind to the part where we discuss those. All right, good luck.